They rejected the ability to be His children. They rejected the childhood of Daddy God and they came to Baal. The meaning of the word Baal is master, ruler, owner. Rejecting the fact that they could be children, they come to Baal and become voluntary slaves. One of the reasons that the Pharisees and scribes didn't like Jesus is because He called God Abba. If Jesus were possibly in India, He would have called God maybe Papa or Baba. If He was speaking in English, He might have called God Daddy God, someone who's so close to us. In fact, you understand Daddy God or Papa God in terms of the Old Testament, the names of God in the Old and the New Testament, the attributes of God. And it builds so much confidence. Say, for example, in the Old Testament, God is known as El Shaddai, that is almighty and all-powerful. You put that in terms of Daddy God and it becomes, my Daddy is all-powerful and almighty. Say, God is called Jehovah Jireh, that is, my Lord is provision. You put it in terms of Daddy God, it becomes, my Daddy is provision. Say, you call God Jehovah Rapha, that is, God is healing. But you put it in terms of Daddy God, it becomes my Daddy God or my Daddy is healing. In fact, all the names of God and you attach Daddy to it. Say, Daddy is my refuge, my strength. He's a wonderful counselor. He's the light in darkness. He's the rock on which I stand. He's the tower of strength. You associate Daddy with all these terms and it builds so much confidence in us. In fact, it just doesn't build confidence. That is all that our heart desires. We desire all these attributes of God. We desire so much more of Him. It's in a very simple way, as Augustine says, God, you made us. And our hearts will never find rest until they find their rest in you. Even Israel understood this. When God brought them out of Egypt into the promised land, or He was bringing them to the promised land, they stopped at Sinai. They had understood all these attributes of God, that our Daddy God is protective, that our Daddy God cares, that our Daddy God is almighty, that our Daddy God controls nature, that our Daddy God is such a loving God, that our Daddy God is such a merciful God. They had understood all these attributes of God. But there they were at the foot of Mount Sinai. Moses was on top having a chat with God. And what do? They build a golden calf. How? By collecting all the gold in the tribe. And this golden calf they call the god Baal. They call this idol their god. Now notice they didn't just reject Daddy God. But what did they do? They took all the attributes of Daddy God and all that God, Daddy God could give them and put it on Baal and hoped that this idol of Baal could give them all those things. How do we know that? Notice what Aaron says. Aaron says, after erecting the calf, after erecting this idol, he says, behold, this is the God that has brought us out of Egypt. They didn't just reject God, but they rejected the ability to be His children. They rejected the childhood of Daddy God and they came to Baal. The meaning of the word Baal is master, ruler, owner. Rejecting the fact that they could be children, they come to Baal and become voluntary slaves. They become slaves to the very idols that they have made. Let me ask you a question. What is that one thing in your life that if taken away from you, you'd lose the desire to live? Or maybe, what is that one thing that if you do not achieve, you'd lose the desire to live? And we all have this one thing. We all have this one idol. In fact, St. John of the Cross calls a lot of temporal goods idols. For example, they can be our family, they can be our spouse, they can be our children, they can be our career, they can be our jobs, they can be our finances, they can be our financial security, they can be the comfort that we have, they can be the beauty that we are so obsessed with, they could be our romantic life, they could be our homes. All these temporal goods, St. John the Cross in his book, Ascent to Mount Carmel says that are not bad in themselves, they are good. But the problem is these temporal goods, because of our weak nature, slowly and steadily begin to take the place of God. What St. John the Cross gives us after that is a little helpful, and I'd like to share it with you. St. John the Cross gives us 4 different stages of idolatry. The first being very simple. We have a heart in the right place. We love God. We desire God. We want to be with God. We want to know Daddy God. We want to live as His children. And that's the blue sky. And suddenly from somewhere, a dark cloud, not very big, maybe a little small, comes in. And that small idol comes in. And the small idol slowly and steadily begins to take the place of God. Mind you, our heart is in the right place. And this is the first stage. And then we have the second stage. Second stage is extreme lukewarmness. And in this stage, we do recognize God, but the idols in our life have become so much more important. We don't put God at the center of our day and plan our day around God. We rather fit everything into our day, and then finally we try to squeeze God inside there. We would like to ignore our spiritual exercises. So say, for example, we go for Mass, but we really don't want to go. We go because we have to, because it's a compromise, because someone is requesting us to go, or someone is pleading with us to go. We go for someone else, but we do go. What's the third stage? The third stage is the total abandonment of God. In this stage, you know that God exists. You know that Daddy God exists, but you've let go of Him. The world, the temporal goods have become so important, they've taken such a high place. In fact, these temporal goods can kill us in 2 ways. The first way, we look at those goods and we crave, we desire them so much. The desire is so much that we spend all our lives and all our efforts to get these goods. And the second way that these goods can kill us is by giving themselves to us. Is that we possess all these things, we possess all these goods, and we are so focused on just taking care of these goods. The world kills us in 2 ways. By giving itself to us and by withholding itself from us. And the fourth way. The fourth way is a very forgetfulness of God. You've just forgotten that Daddy God exists. You have a new God. People say that, okay, we don't have a God. There's no Daddy God and there is no God. But as G.K. Chesterton says, for when we cease to worship God, we do not worship nothing. We worship everything. We all have these idols in our lives. We all have this Baal in our life, the ruler, the owner of our lives. But let's take a moment and go back to Daddy God and say, Daddy God, give me your grace to overcome this idol. And in His lovingness, in His kindness, He will give you the grace. And if you receive the grace and you turn back to Him, He will also bless you for receiving His grace and coming back to Him. That is the beauty of our Daddy God. God bless. Take care.